morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is, wherever it is that you are. We're back again, 16 hours later, doing another show. Good morning,
Saturday
Christos.
morning now. Are we still operating on Australian time zones?
Well, we could flip the show upside down. I thought about doing that yesterday, but I thought that might be kind of mean. I just remember the Top Gear episode where they did like a crossover with Top Gear Australia, and they brought them in a prison wagon. They said, "We want to bring you in the same way your ancestors left."
Oh, snap! I haven't seen this episode.
Oh, it was so funny.
I don't know if you offended our Australian friends now.
Yeah. They're saying you sound like you're in a tube. Did your microphone click over again?
Why would it? Let me see.
I don't know.
Let me reconnect because it might not have taken into consideration the changes. Right.
Uh-oh. He's left me all alone again. Well, anyway, good morning, everybody. Christos will be back in a minute.
Back.
Okay, you're back.
Is it better now, folks?
I mean, it's okay. I would say it's great,
Nope.
but
What?
yeah, I don't know.
It's all Chris's fault. Sorry, JP's fault.
Yeah, well, I aim to please.
It's workable. I might not be singing today. And my camera is long and stuff.
You need to wake up.
I've got two lovely daughters that made sure I would wake up this morning, so it's fine. It's like a 90s synthesizer. It might be my auto-tune this morning, you know? I was getting ready to break into song, and my auto-tune.
Yeah.
Configured properly. Yeah.
Well, anyway, so what you got for news today, Mr. Matskus?
What do you mean what you got for news? You got some amazing news. We landed the freaking rover on the moon, on Mars.
I did watch that yesterday. I saw it on right before we started, actually, and then I watched some of it like last night. Like I watched the recordings. It's pretty cool stuff. Although I saw this picture and I was like, "That's it? That's the best picture we can get." But then,
I was reading an article about the black and white. Why? Because my wife's like, why is it black and white? Why is it not color? And did you know? Do you know why?
No.
Better light capture and higher quality and less data to transmit. And what they do is they can actually interpolate colors with filters on top of these images. So the end result can still look color, but the rover can have, it captures light much better apparently, and the contrast is a lot better because it doesn't have the RGB filter and processing that you need to do. So they can have more processing power for higher quality black and white, and then they can put the color on that. And I spent yesterday an hour watching how the rockets are made. There's a fantastic channel on YouTube called Smarter Every Day. You probably have come across this one. And in one of them, he did a tour of the factory that actually manufactures the Atlas and the new rockets that will go into Mars. I think it was about a year old. But it goes to the process of how they take the raw materials, the pure aluminum,
Right.
and they machine it, and then they check it, and then they fold it, and he went through the process. Apparently, up until this point, it was such a secret process, and obviously parts of the factory were hidden away. But even being able to go in there and record, I had to get permission from ITAR because that's national secrets that he was going through. Because the same company also produces ballistic missiles, so they have that technology there. And it was absolutely insane how the manufacturing process goes, how they fold it. In fact, they don't use computers to fold the seats of rockets. They use people to actually fold them with a giant hydraulic press that takes hours to do. But machines can be as efficient in doing that. And he was also talking about the inside of the aluminum seats gets machined and drilled and what have you into patterns. And apparently before they had the isotropic patterns, which were all triangles. So think about the seed is flat, and then they etch triangles in there. Now they changed the process to be squares because it takes less time to produce. It's stronger in terms of stuff. But they couldn't do that 10 or 20 years ago because the computing capacity that we had did not allow us to come up with different patterns. I was mind blown. I spent an hour last night. I was like, what are you watching? Like, this is so interesting. And I watched the final tank that produced for the last stage for propulsion to actually go over the atmosphere. It's made out of very, very thin stainless steel. It's a half the size of like half the width of or the width of the penny, or yeah, it's that thin, and that it gets pressurized. Yeah, it's super thin, and they actually machine it and they fold it and they I actually found how they connect the pieces together. They do not use traditional welding. They do pressure welding, which I was like, I didn't even know that this thing existed. You take two pieces of metal and then you pass over them.
I think you've been AZ wildfired. Yeah. So I can hear you, but I don't think anybody else can. Yeah, see, I'm laughing at you right now, not at you, but with you. I'm laughing right now, but I'm guaranteed that I will be next. So you're back now.
I'm back. Probably, you know what? People probably don't want to hear about freaking rockets. It's fine. Might not be as interesting. But anyway, I found it interesting. We landed the rover yesterday. So many points, AZ Wildfire. We're gonna come at you, AZ Wildfire. We're gonna put some limits there. Copper Beardy. Can you do it for the guests as well? Can we actually mute guests? Ah, there you go. Our esteemed guests will be muted by our audience. Isn't it fun? Anyway, I'll carry on with the news while you can't speak. Yeah, you're JP's in jail, so you can't do it.
This is going to be such a circus, and I've got a few other ideas for things that I want to put in here too. So, see, AZ Wildfire's already mad about the cooldown, and it's only a 1-minute cooldown between redemptions. So, like, this episode is probably going to be 15 minutes of voice over a 2-hour period. As long as he's here, anyway.
Yes. Right.
Per request.
Next set of news. So we just wrap it for the day and then go home because
I think they're trying to tell us something.
Notepad plus, yeah.
Oh my god. Oh man.
You know what? We can use. Yeah, you know what? I'll bring Notepad and I'll start typing stuff while I'm muted.
That's true. We probably should figure out. We should probably figure out.
I've got 1 minute to put the news. Come on, man. Don't let the cooldown period just be wasted. Anyway, .NET Preview 6, Preview 1 has been announced. It doesn't support everything and all the workloads. A giant blog post to explain how and why and what's coming. And I think it's very exciting. Blazor desktop apps. I was like, what? Why?
See, this is, it's like the question I asked yesterday or 2 days ago that caused far more discussion on Twitter than I ever expected, which is how do I build a desktop app with .NET? Like, what's the way to do it now? Mm-hmm. And
3 tweets.
I got 3 tweets. None the wiser. And still have no idea. And the thing I'm wondering is like, and then I saw this. This came out like later the same day. So then I'm like, well, is all that invalidated? Like, do I need to use Blazor now? Is that the thing I need to? Is that the thing I need to use to build a desktop app? I don't know.
I think that's still experimental, and I don't know, like a Blazor. So you still have a web view. Do you remember the old Windows 8 desktop apps that we had, like HTML and CSS, or you could do it with C++, or you could do it with C#
WinJS
and XAML. Yeah, I think that reminds me of that. Right? It almost feels the same.
Well, I did see it. I saw a really cool article yesterday, and I think it's a little bit older, but it was somebody who went and figured out how to do Blazor and Electron, but also doing it with framework available on the machine, so not framework embedded, and doing it without Node embedded, because I guess Electron embeds Node and Chrome V8,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And it went from like a 166 meg package that ran with, a couple hundred megs of RAM to like a 12 meg package that ran with, like 16 megs of RAM or something when it was running. I mean, it was really impressive.
60 megs of RAM is fantastic. That doesn't even count for one tab in Chrome.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know. I was pretty impressed. So, but .NET 6 is an LTS release, right?
Yes.
So once it releases, of course.
Yes.
So, and then, so what's the deal with Maui? Is that like a new name for something
Maui,
that exists?
They took Xamarin Forms. That was a way to create mobile apps and desktop apps using the same UI, right? And a common backend. And they extended that to support other options as well. So right now you can do a Windows desktop. It was, it's a funny story, but Xamarin was always supported on the desktop. You could embed in WPF, you can even embed it in WinForms, and it will still run. But there was friction between the WinUI team, the UWP teams, and Xamarin, so it never really took off. Eventually, we decided to make that the official UI framework. So now you can use Xamarin Forms, not the full Xamarin, but Xamarin Forms, to create consistent UIs across desktop, mobile, and it supports Linux. No, it doesn't support Linux. It supports iOS and Windows for now. I saw that Linux will be coming in the future, and the whole idea there is that you'll be able to write once, run everywhere. Mobile, desktop, and across.
I mean, we've heard this before. Copper Beardy said too. Silverlight, right? We've heard run once, write once, run everywhere before.
Yeah, but now, well, we tried to do before, but we didn't have the support from all the teams. Now Maui is, the .NET team has unanimously decided to go ahead with Xamarin Forms. Is it the best option? I don't know. I mean, I would love another paradigm, but if anybody has a better idea on how to do it, like right now we only have two choices when it comes to cross-platform desktop apps, right? You have Electron, and then you have Maui. Am I missing anything else? Do we have Java or something that can do desktop and mobile?
I've never seen a good-looking Java desktop app. Like, I think you can
right?
definitely do it. I've never like I've used them, and I've never seen one that looks native at all. It looks like a Java app. Jeremy says WebAssembly wasn't a thing back then, which is true.
True.
And I remember when we first tried some Blazor WebAssembly stuff, I remember thinking, like, that's pretty cool. Like, there's definitely potential there that I'm going to write a C-sharp app in Blazor that gets compiled down to WebAssembly that's then going to be run as a desktop app in Windows. And thought, well, I mean, it's a giant circle, but at least it works. And then H3 Tech, he says JavaFX isn't horrible. I don't know what JavaFX apps look like, but... I have to the apps that I've used have been ones I've just downloaded. I've never known exactly how they were built. And he also says he has a weird thing with Chrome with hardware acceleration that makes the colors weird. And so he has to turn off. I'm assuming turn off hardware acceleration for it to look right, which that does sound kind of awful. It sounds like a video driver or video card issue. I had a video card problem like that years and years ago, and I thought it was a driver, and it turned out it was hardware. They had to come replace the board because it wasn't working right. So, okay,
now
what else you got?
Talking about desktop, there is actually just around the corner we have .NET Focus on Windows.
Zoom, please.
Zoom. Sorry, you're right. And that's a free event. The .NET Focus events are running at, I think, once a quarter, and we focus on certain technology. We've done Blazor before. You can catch up on all the videos. We had the full .NET recently, and now we're going through the cycle again. The next event will be focused on Windows, and they're going to be talking about all the things that JP has questions about. So JP,
I mean, timing couldn't have been better. I'm glad I asked the question when I did. Look at that. Visual Basic on .NET 5.
Bring it on with Kathleen. I mean, Kathleen is the champion for VB.NET. And then we have one of our friends doing the authentication component of that. So if you see familiar slides, then just be aware it's us. We have Javier Lozano, who's doing the authentication bit, like how to authenticate desktop apps against Azure AD. So he's doing that, and Graph.
Nice.
Yes.
It's interesting that all the .NET folks call it Azure Identity, and all of us call it Microsoft Identity.
Yeah.
I'll be curious what that means. Like, does that mean like the Azure Identity Library or something different? You know what I mean?
No, it's the Microsoft Identity stuff. Yeah.
Maybe they know something we don't know.
True.
Hey, have you heard anything about VS Visual Studio Next? Like, is there going to be a VS 2020?
I am answering this one. We have 16.9 and 16.10 earmarked for later this year. And in my mind, I think that's going to be that for the rest of 2020. I have no idea whether 2021 will bring another version. It almost feels like we went into that perpetual, always evergreen Visual Studio, like we did with Windows, right? You have Windows 10 now. You don't get new Windows 11. You're probably going to get updates on Windows 10 forever. I wonder if Visual Studio will go to that and drop the 2019 version, because they're adding quite a few new features into 2019. I don't see that going anywhere.
Well, I noticed it's usually referred to as like Visual Studio 16, right? Like I don't even hear the year being used very much anymore. Although there is a Windows Server. Internal. Well, but that's what shows up in the installer and stuff.
Yeah, the internal version, the 16, is what we used to designate the version product, but to the public, it's Visual Studio 2019, Visual Studio 2017, and what have you.
Well, there's a Windows Server 20, I think it was Windows Server 2022, which I guess will be the next.
Wow.
It's sort of interesting because you have this like sort of underlying perpetual software stack that's constantly evolving with Windows.
Yeah.
But it's almost like they sort of, like they break them off every so often and say, okay, this is a server release, and it sort of breaks from the main line and then comes back in the next release. I don't know, it's kind of interesting. So
the question for me to you would be, to everyone, would you like to see more investment in the full fat client, or would you expect to see more happening into the code space where you can just spin up things in the cloud? Like, I don't know. For me, it sounds more exciting to be able to run my stack anywhere in the cloud from any machine, rather than having to install Visual Studio. In fact, I haven't installed Visual Studio on my machine since I did a clean pave. What was it, like October, when I got my new desktop. I haven't installed it yet. So VS Code does everything for me, but then again, I am not writing software, 8 hours a day on that. So maybe
that's what I realized when I asked the desktop question was, if I got to go build a desktop app, like a Windows desktop app, I'm either going to have to handwrite YAML handwrite XAML without a designer. Because I haven't seen like a XAML designer for VS Code.
No, there is one.
Yeah, so like, which I mean, I guess in some ways is probably okay. I mean, you write markup without a designer, but I guess honestly, it's been so long since I last did any desktop development, really. Like, I think the last thing I did desktop was we were building a Connect app, which was it was Windows 8 app model or whatever. And so it was like you could use your hands to move a PDF on the screen. And it was a lot of fun to write, but like the Windows 8 thing back then was just like, I mean, it was so much work. Like just trying to figure it out, make it work. It was just a ton of work. So
it was a lot of work. You're right. So wait a minute. There's this thing that I saw the other day about VS Code that allows you to spin up code extensions from the URL. Do you remember what it was? You just need to add one, I think. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I found it.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was though.
Oh, 1S. Sorry, that's me. 1S. Check this out. So you go into your GitHub repo, right? Then you put 1S at
Zoom,
the
please.
end. I can't zoom in. Can I zoom in the URL? I can't zoom in the URL. I mean, I need
No, just the screen. You couldn't see it.
Okay, let me zoom in here. Will it work? It displayed through 2 screens. I don't like it. Escape. Right. That's awful. Right. Up here, 1S into your URL, and we'll actually get code spaces running with your repo.
Is it code spaces? Is it code spaces or something else?
I don't know. Let me see. What is it?
Because that's a big difference. If it's code spaces, I wouldn't mind putting in my credentials.
Spaces.
Yeah, I would put my credentials in if it's code spaces, so I can sync and do all that sort of stuff. But if it's not code spaces, if it's just some random dude with server, I think I might be a little nervous.
I don't know what is GitHub 1S? Set OAuth token for unauthenticated requests. The rate limit is 60 per request per second. I don't know what this is. For API requests using authentication, you can make up to 5,000 requests. Does anybody know what this is? I have no idea.
No, I don't know who made it. I mean, it says this page is it's an open source project not officially provided by GitHub. It's from CONWNET.
Huh.
It is cool though, because remember you and I talked about building something like this for the purposes of doing code tour, right? Remember we were thinking about writing code tours for some of these libraries, and thinking like with code spaces it'd be awesome to be able to send somebody a link, say, hey, click this link. And it immediately takes them to VS Code in the browser and does Code Tour. And if you haven't seen Code Tour, it's super cool. It's a way to
amazing.
Yeah, it's a way to like essentially annotate a project or a bucket of code, and navigate through it with comments from people who wrote it. Right. So instead of like leaving comments everywhere, it's Tour, and you can just save them in the repo along with the rest of the files. And it's a really cool.
It becomes part of your repo. It's amazing.
Yeah. So like having like a code tour that you could click without having VS Code installed, without doing anything else, that was something we were thinking about building. I guess we could always add it to the list. Well, we could buy the domain, which means it's an official project at that point, and then we'll renew it for 4 years, and maybe then we'll do it.
Cyber Squad on the domain name. So anyway, .NET Focus next week. Make sure you check it out, please, if you want to learn about desktop. Next. I like this one. I have two
Zoom, please.
2 gaming machines sitting there, but since we're allowed now to play on the browser and we're allowed to play on the desktop without really installing anything, if you have Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, for now I think it's internal only, but it's becoming public. It means that I play on whim, so I can just quickly launch the app and then I can play any game I want without having to download it. It just streams it for me. And now that's coming to browsers as well, so you'll be able to play games on the browser soon. It's
that'll be cool.
Now, yeah.
Seeing as it's like completely impossible to get an Xbox Series X. Like I've had one of mine notify me when it's available. I mean, people are using bots and all sorts of crazy stuff. So I mean, I think I read where they're not expecting the supply to be around till like June, right? That's a long. I mean, that's a long time. Now I'm kind of regretting not like watching the sites like a hawk back in November or whenever it was released, because it's like impossible to get a hold of. Granted, I get to play my Xbox like once a quarter, so maybe it doesn't matter.
I know exactly, because I don't boot it, because every time I boot it, I have to wait for 2 hours to do all the updates. So what I end up doing, like if I want to play something quickly, I actually spin it up on my desktop. I attach my gamepad, and I play on the desktop, which is the same experience.
Yeah.
Now, Fuel Snubble is asking whether I will provide high resolution. The article does not make it extremely clear whether it will be a 4K and what the lag will be, but well, I play on the desktop, so just to clarify, I play on the desktop, but it streams to my desktop, so it doesn't really matter. I don't think it uses the CPU on the desktop. The desktop becomes just a thin client, and everything is running on xCloud. So it is remote. You don't need a beefy machine to run on the desktop. What I'm saying though is that since I don't have to boot up my Xbox, I can play all my Xbox games on my desktop, which is brilliant. Without installing, that's very important. Doesn't take space.
So I did it with So I managed to get the APK installed on the NVIDIA Shield thing. Mm-hmm. So we use one of those upstairs, and it actually worked pretty well. But it was one of those things where it's like it would work really well, and then like you would start a different game, and it was absolutely abysmal. The latency was so bad, like you just couldn't do it. And then you'd start it again, and then it would be fine. And for stuff like racing games and like fuel saying for fighting games, I don't know. Like the latency's pretty good for what it is. Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, I remember playing Forza at the beach on my phone, and that was pretty good. Like, I mean, it was certainly serviceable. But
I need to meet you there because that doesn't sound right. You were playing Forza at the beach while you were there with the kids?
Well, yeah, I was there with my whole family over the summer.
Why would you be playing Forza at the beach? You could be doing so many things at the beach, not playing Forza, man.
I don't know, because it rained one day, and I was like, what else am I going to do? Kids are napping,
right. You mean on holiday, when you were on holiday?
Yeah, we took a real vacation away from the house.
Yeah, I miss those.
So, yeah, I miss
those
too.
Now you made me depressed.
Because it's cold. It's 35 and raining outside right now. It's been raining all week long. Anyway.
Yeah, it's miserable.
Caparina
is asking, I'm wondering how you can sandbox 100 gigabyte game. Wow. Well, you know what? I don't know how they do it. The whole point is that it's driven by cloud. So all you have to do is just say which game you want to play, and it will start streaming to you. There's no lag. At least for Arkham Asylum that I was playing, Batman, it worked well. Raining all week.
My guess is shared storage, right? It's got to be. You got shared storage. You have one copy of the game. It loads up what it can to start, and then goes on from there. You know what I mean? No, yes. Fuel. I don't live in Seattle. I live on the East Coast. I'm in Charlotte, and it's been rainy and cold here all week. We didn't get any snow, though.
Well, you shouldn't complain because Texas still doesn't have any power or water. So
they do in Cancun, though. We should just go down there
instead. I don't know if I should going down that route.
We'll take the whole state down there. Oh, wait. Sorry.
Yeah.
What else?
Yeah.
Share it Android app flaw. All right.
Yes. only 1 billion downloads of this app so far.
Oh my God! Really?
And it is it's susceptible to code hijacking, remotely executing codes, taking over people's devices. So this is a major security hole. Please, it hasn't been patched yet. So if you're using it, I would say uninstall it and move on. And talking about news, just this morning, apparently there's a way to bypass the MasterCard PIN by pretending that they're Visa cards. And you can actually do high purchase value shopping by using this kind of attack. Obviously, this was done in a lab, but you could trick point of sale terminals to actually think that your MasterCard is a Visa and bypass the whole thing. So one more thing to be paranoid about. Isn't that beautiful?
Well, the short answer is just don't spend any money, right?
Yeah, don't use plastic. Use cash. Just cash for everything.
And Fuel said spent the whole week working on the dependency confusion issue, the thing we talked about last week with.
Oh yes.
Packages with reserved names, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Should we mention that again? Dependency confusion. We'll find it. Substance abuse, really? Wow.
Yeah, I mean the short version is that if you've got internal packages that have a name, and you've given them a name, and those names do not exist in, say, an NPM or a NuGet or any of these public repositories, say PayPal.internal super secret thing, if that name isn't reserved, I could go create a malicious package called PayPal.supersecretName, and NPM's going to go download it, or NuGet's going to go download it when it comes time to run. So, and then yesterday we were talking some about reserved names in .NET and NuGet. So you can reserve essentially you can reserve a prefix. So like we have the Microsoft prefix reserved, obviously, but you can also reserve your own prefix. So if you've got your own company name, you can be sure that they won't be squatted. I mean, it's like a super malicious cyber squatting at this point, right?
Yes.
So
reverse cyber squatting on your names, which is great. And finally, for Rust developers, it's fantastic because now the Rust programming language is on a non-profit foundation. It was developed by Mozilla and it's been passed into the non-profit foundation, which means that companies like Huawei, Google, Microsoft, and Mozilla all banded together to create a foundation, which is exciting because it means that it's not controlled by one single company and it is part of the foundation. Hooray for Rust developers. And I'm done with the news.
Yeah. So we've had a couple interesting discussions this week in Discord.
Yes.
One of them was around, and one of them I learned about was around B2C MFA. Hang on a second. Let me get my screen up here. We're going to take a look at this because this thing I'm actually quite curious about this.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get moved over here. So according to one AZ Wildfire, let me just pull it up here. So AZ Wildfire tells us that the B2C directories are now able to use MFA. Now, and not B2C MFA, but like actual MFA. And I'm super curious about that because I know that historically that has not been a thing, right? Like historically, you could go and configure it, and all it really did was break your Active Directory.
Right.
Break your B2C, so your B2C users couldn't sign anymore. So let's get into my tenant. I wish I could find. I need to find that doc again that he sent me, or that he sent us in Discord because it actually sort of went over all the stuff about it. So I'm gonna check one more time to see if I can find that link. I guess I can just search for MFA, right? So here it is. So according to this document, it says Azure AD B2C integrates directly with Azure AD Multi-Factor. And if you...
My turn to say.
If you've used B2C Multi-Factor historically, B2C Multi-Factor was essentially...
You got muted. Can you play sounds? JP is playing sounds in the background. I don't know if they work. Do they work? Can you hear the sounds? I can definitely hear it. So. Oh, they can hear the tune. That's brilliant. Open up Notepad and start talking or typing what you were about to say. There you go. It's done. Very nice.
Oh, it is done. Okay, it's over now. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bolt. Thanks for the reminder to Zoom. If you're watching us on another channel and you want to come over to aka.ms/425 show and you can redeem channel points.
You can mute this.
We have two new ones today. You can mute me and you can mute Christos for 30 seconds. And it's already been a complete circus this morning because of it. But I think it's actually kind of fun. We got a couple other things we're going to look at too. Look at adding. But if there's anything you want to see added, be sure to let us know. Anyway, so historically, if you looked at B2C, it had essentially there were two ways to do MFA. You got phone call and you got SMS. Mm-hmm. And that was it. There was no app, like no authenticator app or any sort of thing like that.
Built-in. That's important. Like there's no
built-in. That's right. So you can we integrated Twilio with ours a while back, right? So there are all sorts of different ways to do it, but the built-in ones that you got out of the box were purely phone and SMS. Mm-hmm. And then this article, which was just published a couple weeks ago, says that B2C integrates directly with Azure AD MFA. And we saw that and we're kind of like, wait a minute. Now, I haven't actually read this yet. The quick scan that I did, it was like, well, wait a minute. Maybe this is a real thing. Like maybe we can actually do this. So,
should we do this?
So I'm going to go look at. I'm going to go over to B2C, and we're going to take a look. So let me get to my B2C tenant. So if you're doing a lot of B2C work and you just want to go to it directly, you can go to portal.azure.com / the name of your directory, your name of your B2C directory, and then you don't have to do all the tenant switching and skipping around, all that sort of stuff. So let's go to B2C. I'm going to create a user flow. Let's create a new user flow, and we'll just do a normal sign up, sign in one. We'll do recommended because that's the next one. Bolt went and looked at the git diff on this document, so I'm pretty sure this is also not going to work, but that's okay. We're gonna take a look. So MFA, let's see, we'll call this AAD MFA Susie for sign up, sign in, and whatever. We'll just pick a few here. Bing, 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 bing. You really need to select all here. So okay. Oh yeah. All right. So it still don't look like it's. You still don't get app. You get SMS or phone call, or you can do SMS only or phone call only. But it doesn't look like you actually get. It doesn't look like you actually get app yet.
He gets paid 10 cents per word. Bing. You're right, Bolt.
I mean, have you ever used Bing Rewards? You get a ton of. You can get like gift cards and stuff for next to nothing. So okay, so this was
search engine for the last 5 years since I've always been using Edge.
Yeah, so this is much ado about nothing. No, we can't. It's still just SMS or phone call or email, I guess. Email is at least nice because you don't pay for email. You do pay 3 cents per phone call or 3 cents per SMS per request. So email is at least free, but sadly, it doesn't look like you get the full one. And the reason I say that is because if you go and look, we're in B2C, but you can click B2C or you can click Azure Active Directory. And if you go in here, let's go in here and I'll find a user, right? So users, I'm just going to pick one. So I'll pick this user. And you see things like this. Require a re-register of MFA. Like, okay, yeah, I want them to use MFA. Or... historically, there was actually an MFA button, which I think looks like was finally removed because that was definitely a big problem. And so this is super confusing because if you set things here, it doesn't work, right? So if I was to add an authentication method here for phone number, I'll put in a phone number here. And it looks like I need a +1 on here. So let's see, +1. Oh, it needs a space too. Boy, that's a super particular thing. So now I've got a phone number, but like, there's still no way for me to go and set up an app or do anything like that. So while this phone number, this authentication phone number, is actually used in things like conditional access policies, we can't set up the traditional MFA. If you're familiar with regular Azure AD MFA,
right?
You still can't set that up. So, sadly,
play
no
the
news is
sad
good news.
trombone music. Come on.
I don't even know if I have a sad trombone in here anymore. I do have a.
Yeah, that's not the effect I was looking for. Do you have like a sad violin?
No, I need more. I just haven't.
You need to work on your sounds. I am disappointed.
I know. Okay, so anyway, so yeah, so hey BSD guy.
Yeah.
So so sadly, MFA is still what it is. This fact that it says that it integrates directly with Azure AD Multifactor, that just seems like because of all of these things, only these two are available from B2C.
Yes.
And it's not even the same. It's not really even the same interface,
We need to go back. We need to go back to the docs team to fix this and provide input on that. Super confusing.
So, anyway,
we even confused AZ Wildfire. Can you you have a sad weekend now?
But then we also had, JTPT Dev. So we've been working with, we've been working for a while on getting set up with Microsoft Identity.web and calling multiple APIs from B2C, which is actually a surprisingly difficult thing to achieve, which as we found out last week. So you can think I'm I've got an app in B2C, and I need to call two separate. I need to call two separate APIs. Not two API, like maybe not two API paths on the same route, but on two different routes. That's the key, right? Because those two different resources need two different access tokens, because an access token is valid for one.
Yep.
Well, in Azure AD, with identity.web, they do that through a refresh token flow, interestingly enough, which is relatively new. Historically, that wasn't available, and so that didn't happen. Now, B2C doesn't support that yet. And so because B2C doesn't support that yet, you end up having to jump through a bunch of hoops just to get your... you essentially have to re-authenticate the user in order to get a token for a different one. Now, that re-authentication is usually relatively silent, but it doesn't... It involves the front channel. It involves the browser, because the user has to go back to B2C to get that token and then come back to you. So it's almost like it is really a re-auth. The fact that there's a cookie at B2C is what makes it so it doesn't happen to you. So anyway, you and I encountered the same issue that JTPT was encountering, where trying to inject the token acquisition client into like a class, it didn't work.
Yep. Meaning,
when we got to the point of, well, I need to send the user back to go sign in for whatever reason, consent, MFA requirement, whatever. When we got to that point, it wouldn't work. And so what's interesting about it is the authorized for scopes attribute. So, I'm going to go clone this quickly. And I've actually got another one that we can go and clone that's similar. So let's get this code up, and we'll go take a look at it. So we had, it was it Blazor? It was Blazor Server AAD, something like that. Make sure this is the right one. It is not the right one. Let's open this one up and go take a look. So the problem, when you and I ran into this problem, we ran into this problem because it was Blazor, or so we thought. And so we would have our... Still isn't the right one. Hang on. I know I've got the right code. I just need to go find it. Let's see. Where was it? You know what? I've got it in my GitHub, so I'll just go over there. Waiting. MSID dev Blazor AAD graph. This was the one. So let's do git clone on here. Oh, it already exists, as I figured it did. So let's get this code up, and we're going to take a look at it. So the problem that we were having was, let's say, this is the standard out of the box Blazor thing, right? Standard template. Not a whole lot of changes here. It's a standard authenticated template. And one of the things in here is weather forecast service. And the weather forecast service, the old one, just returned back, just goop, right? Random temperatures with, whatever. So the problem that we found was that when you injected iToken acquisition into essentially an API class or an API wrapper class, right? Something you're going to use to go call your downstream API, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work at all. Like, it would just say, oh, sorry, there's no account. I can't do any work here. And so that's where this identity, consent, and conditional access handler comes in. Now, this is kind of misnamed in a way, in the sense that, or it can be misleading in the name, in that it really just means that for some reason you have to go back to the identity system. You have to sign in again because you need to MFA, because your policies are out of date. For some reason you have to go back. That's what this thing handles. So in a Razor page, we do this. We say that this is going to happen fairly straightforward with a fairly straightforward page attribute called authorized for scopes. Authorized for scopes, and it's probably not going to resolve it here. But in here you say things like, oh, I need to authorize for, my system WAC scope 1, right? And what this does is it injects the identity consent and conditional access handler, and that access handler is the thing. It's an exception filter, and what it does is say, oh, well, you need this scope, and that's probably why we had an exception. So I'm going to take you over to Azure AD, and you're going to go sign in again, and you're going to consent to this scope, or you're going to sign in again, or do whatever it is that you're required to do over at the identity system. Well, the problem is this is a page attribute, or a page or an MVC controller attribute. You can't really put that somewhere else because the exception filter isn't going to work. So instead, if we go look at what authorize for scopes actually does, it actually does something like this. Let's go look at our weather forecast service. So we've got this get access token for user async. That's the normal token acquisition thing that we would use. But you'll notice it's wrapped in a try. And the big thing is that we're going to handle the exception. We're going to tell the conditional access and consent handler explicitly, please handle this exception, because it's almost guaranteed to be an MSAL UI required exception, which is, of course, the exception that you have to catch if you need to go send the user back to the identity system to re-authenticate. So it's more manual work for you, but it is almost identical to what's going to happen in a page with that authorize for scopes attribute hanging off of it. Of course, it changes these as well. That scope does. It changes the scopes that you're going to go back and request. So it's I'll be honest, it's terribly opaque because it took us a good afternoon to really trace this all the way down and figure out exactly what was happening. And luckily, when it happened again a month later, we had already traced it back. But the short version is,
there are some good news on the horizon, right? One of the two issues is that I think we're going to be fixing it by the end of March. No hard deadlines there or whatever, but if you remember that email that was sent to the B2C team, they did say that one of the two issues will be addressed, although the second, I can't remember which of the two was it. But I can find out and let you know, because it will become slightly better, but it won't solve all the problems. So the opacity of the solution is not going to totally go away, right?
Yeah. And essentially what's going to happen here is this is going to force a redirect. So by doing this handle exception, it's going to force a user to redirect back to B2C to do stuff. Mm-hmm. And so it can be a bit disruptive. However, the fortunate part is that should only happen one time per session. So one time per session per user, per API. So we'll have the API that we initially request a token for when we first start. So we'll have that one. Which is usually in your startup. Mm-hmm. And here it is in mine. Like, here's my configuration for these scopes. So this will be here. And so if you're only calling one API, everything stays the same.
Yes.
It's when you need to call the second one or the third one or the fourth one, that's when in your service or in your page, this doesn't have to be in a service, it could be in the page. Mm-hmm. When that happens and you need a separate scope, at this point, when this handle exception runs, you're going to get bounced over to B2C to sign in again. Usually what happens is your cookies are still there, and so you see the page, and then you immediately get redirected back. So it's fairly quick, and it's not like a huge deal. But this should also get your token into the cache. And so once that token's in the cache, it makes it much easier. So now MSAL works normally to go find the token in the cache for that scope, and then send it when you make your API calls. So it should only be a once or twice per session per user thing that they'd have to do this. We know that's not ideal, but at least for now, it's relatively less disruptive, I guess, than not being able to do it at all. So if nothing else, it's at least a good place to start. So what you'll end up doing is you'll handle your exception here. This will handle the rest of the work. This is sort of a secondary issue or a separate interpretation of the same issue where I've got a service that wraps my API calls, right? So by injecting the token service, I have to do this in my service class if I want to do this. And Bolt says, does it handle exception throws if they had to sign in or if they canceled the flow? It should. This code is out there in GitHub. I know it looks for MSAL UI required. I don't know if it looks for the B2C specific errors, however. So if somebody was to have canceled the flow and they get like B2C 9,000 and 90,008 or whatever that one is, I don't think it'll handle that flow specifically. Because this is more about redirecting the user to authorize rather than dealing with them when they get back. When they get back, that's all handled by the regular plumbing, so you'd have to deal with that on your own. One other thing to note too, don't wrap a try around token acquisition unless you intend on handling that exception. Because if you do and the exception gets eaten, this won't run. Because it is still an exception filter on a page. And because it's an exception filter on a page, if you handle it, the exception filter won't handle it. And then you end up in a place where you run it 40 times and don't understand why it isn't working. And not that I have any experience with that specifically for this one. I spent like an hour running this, and I was like, why isn't this filter running? Turns out that's why. So anyway, so JTPT sent us some code, which I'm going to go take a quick look at. So let's see. That was here. Let's go take a look. How to do groups with B2C and Razor Pages. Is it easy? Well, like most things in B2C, it's a relative question. How easy? How easy are you looking for?
How do you measure easiness? Like in hours or effort or I don't know.
Or number of times that
swearing.
you've slammed your face into your keyboard out of frustration.
Yeah.
There are all sorts of reasons why that could be, but okay.
Paul is saying, join our Discord and we'll tell you. I like how you gatekeep things, Bold. I love it.
Groups in B2C are interesting. You can certainly put objects into groups. The way that you have to access those groups is different than a normal
group.
Than the way you would normally get groups. Yeah, like the group membership claims and things don't flow over the same way you would expect them to. So you kind of end up in a weird spot where, I mean, we can look at this for a second. So you'll get the groups through ID token or access token if you put them there yourself. So in normal Azure AD, non-B2C, we have a thing called group membership claims, and by putting group membership claims in the manifest when a user signs in, it will be there. We'll go look. So, and this is okay. Well, yeah. Now it says reconnection successful.
Hey,
I guess we're back now. Somehow we lost half of our people, but whatever. Such is life. I guess that's how it goes.
Yeah. Technical issues.
Anyway.
So what was it? Me? Was it you? Was the fluke with Twitch?
No, I think it was. It must have been my internet here at home. I don't know what happened. So
that would explain it.
Yep. So I don't know. I don't know what happened. Anyway. Yes, as we were saying, if we were to take one of these apps, and we
have a question on Microsoft Developer. Someone saying, do you have any sample code for handling retry after when receiving 429 or 5xx error messages?
Handling a retry after for 429 or 5xx. So there are a couple. Is this specifically is it for a specific service or just any sort of arbitrary API? Because most of our API libraries will have some degree of
built-in, right?
retry handling.
Yeah.
Oh, for receiving the access token.
I'm asking
for receiving the access token. So our libraries will handle retries, although I can't say I've ever really seen that many 429s from Azure AD. Mm-hmm. I've certainly seen 500s where something's screwed up. Most of our libraries will handle that for you. However, if you're not using our libraries, there are definitely a few retry things out there. I'd have to go look and see. I've used a couple historically. I'd have to go look and see, go back through some code and go look for it. 429 429 is usually accompanied by a 429 is usually accompanied by a retry after header. What's that one? I know there's one that's really popular. I just don't remember what it was. I can't remember.
429 is too many requests, and it says a retry after header may be included in this response.
Yeah, usually it is there, but who told you that, Metro Dev? And are you using MSAL or ADAL, or are you using a separate library, or are you rolling all this on your own?
And Microsoft PM, okay, MSAL.
Oh, okay. I'm surprised because MSAL usually handles that, but at the same time, the pattern is try to get one silently, then try to get one interactively. Try to get a token silently, catch that, and then try to get it interactively. If you need to back off, because I think that's the thing, is when you're using something like an MSAL, you wouldn't normally get the HTTP response yourself anyway. So MSAL you're not going to see the HTTP response to that, to where you would know that it was a 429, for example, and then know what the retry after and that sort of thing is going to be. So I don't know. Let me look into it a little bit. Okay, let me look into it a little bit and see exactly what the context was, and we'll get you some help. So was it Poly? Is Poly the one? Is that like the really common retry library in .NET? And what language are you using too, Metro Dev?
Paul says it is Poly. And,
okay, so you're using. Okay, so he's using MSAL.net. Yeah, let me look in. Let me dig in a little bit. If you want, send me an email. Send us an email. 425show@microsoft.com, and we'll chase it down with you to figure it out. Okay, all right. I'm going to be really careful with this one. Deflux. So this is regular Azure AD. This is not B2C. If you look in the manifest, we have something called group membership claims, and you can set this to all, security, or null. Right. So if we set this to all. All right. By setting this to all, we're gonna, when we sign in, we're gonna get this. We're gonna get a set of group claims. So I'll just go do that very, very quickly. So we go to login.microsoftonline.com, and let's see, my tenant, OAuth 2, v2.0, authorize, client ID, and nonce, we'll just do a default one. And for response type, we'll do a ID token. And for scope, we'll just do user.read. Is that all I need to get one? No, it is not. Oops, sorry, I put the wrong scope in. OpenID, user.read. There we go. So if we look in here, let's see. You see that it says has groups true. So that's what you're going to get in your. That's what you're going to get on your. That's what you're going to get on your ID token. And since this is an implicit ID token, that's why it just says has groups, and then you have to go and fetch them on your own. In an access token, we'll include the top 200, the first 200 groups for a user.
Is it 150 or 200?
It's 150 for SAML tokens and 200 for OpenID or for JWTs.
Good to know.
So you get somewhere between 150 and 200 tokens. If you don't have, or 150 and 200, depending on how you're getting your groups, and then you take your groups and you take the group claim and you go and call the graph to get the rest of them. You can use that token to go call the graph and get the rest of the groups for the user. The problem is in B2C, setting that value doesn't do anything because technically you're not actually signing in directly into the app. But yes, this is if you were using Azure AD and not B2C. If you're using B2C, you have to be more creative about it. Where in B2C, the way you're going to do this, after you've signed in, let me get to B2C here.
Creative is so diplomatic, by the way.
Huh?
Creative was a very diplomatic way of saying they have to do more work to get it.
It's a creative way to explain the creativity. So in B2C, there's really no good way to do this right out of the gate. So we can come to an app. I could come in here and say, let's take our app and let's go to the manifest and let's add the group membership claims and set it to all. But it's not going to change anything. It's not going to change the fact that, like, I'm not going to get any of those groups. So, oh, I know why. I know why your voice is screwed up. It's because I have you on the wrong input. How about now?
God, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, it sounds fine now because you're not being doubled up.
Ah, see?
So,
Thank you.
and H3 Tech, that's an awesome thing. So anything you find out, I would love to see it because just getting like the fact that we do the show together all the time, it just like it feels like none of these tools are expecting like multi-track audio in and multi-track audio out. Because like Christos needs to hear one thing, I need to hear something else. You all need to hear something that's all of us. Anyway. Okay.
People are saying they can't handle two of me. So you haven't met my twin yet.
I don't think the Earth could handle two of you. Not in a bad way.
Don't forget, it's Christ himself, not Christos, apparently.
Yeah, that's what he said the other
Machine
day.
learning. Yeah, machine learning can only handle.
Anyway, so by setting this here, this isn't going to matter. So what you end up doing, and I'm trying to think of the best way to explain or draw this, is you have to use custom policy in B2C. And what you're going to do is in your custom policy is going to call an API. Now, it could call your own API that calls the graph that goes and gets your groups. It could also just call the graph and go get your groups and then stuff them into the token. But you're going to have to do it with custom policy. And chances are, what you're going to search for in the graph is group memberships. You're going to get a user's group membership and you're going to send it over. So you'd have to do it in custom policy. And I've got, we have another project going on right now, which I don't know, maybe I don't know if we're going to have time to look at it today. We have another project going on right now where we are building app roles for B2C.
Yes.
This follows a very similar pattern. I'll put this image up here a little bit bigger. That doesn't, I don't know why does it only show half of it anyway. Where when the user signs in, the policy is going to get executed. It's going to call a function. Doesn't have to be a function. You could also call the graph directly.
Oh, okay.
It's going to call the graph, and this is going to go get app role assignments as opposed to group membership, but it's the same concept. So the same thing still happens. You still have to go to the graph, get the group memberships for the user. Those get sent back, and then IEF injects them into the token before it comes through. I would say if you're not familiar with B2C and if you're not familiar with custom policy, I would almost say store them somewhere else. I wouldn't even try to make this work because you have to make a switch from user flows to custom policy, and once you make that switch, it's just now you're in custom policy, and that's where you're going to be for a while. And so making that, like, it's a switch that you don't want to really make that hastily. Like if this is the one thing that you need to do, for example, you might just be better off storing groups in your app database. Now, if you've got 100 apps, maybe it's worth the effort of doing the custom policy side. So he needs groups. I know. Groups, we get asked about groups all the time. So yeah, I know. Ultramark asks, how would I know at the client if the assigned groups of the user were changed? Does the token get revoked? So every time a user signs in, they're going to get a token. That token's usually valid for about an hour. Sometimes they're longer and you can change it at B2C, but usually you can just assume it's going to be good for about an hour. And it's like a snapshot of what happened at that exact moment that they signed in. And the data that's in there is valid for the time period, right? So the group membership, the groups that you're a member of at that moment in time, that's exactly right. deflux. I have to be really careful saying that because I'm going to say the wrong thing. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so use some custom policy. I'll give you a link to this doc or to this repo, and at least should give you an idea what the pattern looks like. Anyway, so the access token or the ID token you get is valid only for an hour, and it's a snapshot of whatever that group membership is or whatever the user status is at that specific time. And so after an hour, we have to renew the token, which means something's got to go back to Azure AD and say, hey, I need to get a new token for this user. That could be the user just gets redirected and they go and sign in again and they get a fresh token. But you can also use something called a refresh token. And that refresh token is a way to do it silently. So the application can say, hey, I've got this refresh token for user 123. I need a new access token for them. The refresh token can be revoked. And once it's revoked, the next time the app tries to present it and say, I need a new access token, it's just going to say, sorry, man, that token's been revoked. I can't help you. And so that hour window, though, once the token's been issued, that hour window is the window where the user could be deleted, different things could happen, whatever. The possession of that token is the thing that says an authentication happened. And it happened at this specific time. And it could have been 22 minutes ago. And so you can also shorten your timeline, your token lifetimes, if you need that to be shorter.
Yeah,
so
to
if
be
you
more
know,
aggressive,
somebody,
right?
Yeah.
What about
and then
continuous access evaluation? Is that something that will be coming?
It's not something we can use yet. It's emerging.
Yeah, it's emerging.
Our standards people are talking to the standards people. It's like the broader standards bodies. It's like have your machine call my machine, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So our standards group is talking to the broader standards groups about something called continuous access evaluation, where when you receive a token, you also will register for webhooks from the identity system, so that as soon as a user is revoked because they changed their password, their administrator revoked them, whatever, as soon as that happens, you're going to get a webhook in your app saying, hey, invalidate user 123. If that's something you like, let us know, because let us know if that's something you want to see, because we can tell our standards folks, and that will help them continue down that path by saying, we've got a lot of customers who are really interested in this. We got a lot of people who are really interested in this. And Ultramark, to close the loop on your question, ID tokens and access tokens are essentially the same thing in terms of validity and refresh and that sort of thing. Like, they're used for two totally separate purposes. An access token is used to call a service. An ID token is for your app to inspect to know that a user signed in. That ID token will also expire after a period of time. It's usually 60 minutes. So the fact that, and you can use a refresh token to renew an ID token. That seems to be a newer thing. I have never done that historically, but that seems to be something we're seeing more frequently, which doesn't mean that, it's cool for you, it's cool for me. So the fact that it is an access token or an ID token is, in some ways, for that whole revocation thing, somewhat immaterial.
Right.
But typically, your ID token will expire at relatively the same time as your access token to other services, and then it's just a matter of clearing your cache or whatever your application needs to do when a user needs to actually sign out, or redirecting them back over to go sign in again if they need to sign in again. Okay. Here's the B2C App Rules project. Although I thought we had moved this over to our 425 show projects. Let me go take a look.
Yeah, we have a new repo where everything lives.
We do have it, so it is in here.
An organizational repo for the 45 show.
Yep. So here's the repo for that.
Where are we with this? Asking what the state of the project is.
I have to build a UI. Who wants to build UI?
Do you want to build this now, man?
Anybody? Anybody who wants to build UI?
Bueller?
We got to get a
Bueller?
We got to get
Bueller, anyone? Where's the Bueller soundbite? You are letting me down today, man.
I know. Yeah, I gotta do some front end for this project. So this project's gonna have a whole front end piece. The front end piece.
We were going to do that. There's no I
Who's
in
we?
the team. You and me.
Who's we?
or the people on this team, or
Wait,
whatever.
what are you talking about? I'm confused.
The UI.
Well, I mean, look, I like to write software, not UI. I can't write UI. I'm awful at it.
Oh, you mean
I'm
you
like-
want a designer to help us make it presentable?
I'm-
Is that what you...
I'm super particular about how things look, but I'm almost incapable of making them look the way I want them to. Anyway, we got to build a UI for managing app roles. Is essentially what we have to do. So I haven't even thought about what it's going to look like yet. I have some rules and some spec and some ideas around how we're going to, what the requirements are going to be as to who can get in and what they can do when they get there. But there's going to be a back end API, which I'm working on now. And then we need a front end. And the front end,
we can actually get Fiverr to do it for us. It's an approved vendor. So we can actually get them to help us out if you want to put a spec out.
Well, anybody who's interested, or anyone who has UI talent, and even just wants to tell us, or just tell us what you want in terms of how it looks, right? Like tell us what you think it should look like, what's intuitive, what's not. If nothing else, so we can at least start getting the ball rolling. So yeah, this project, I'm gonna have to do some work on it next week, and maybe we'll have some new stuff to show. And of course, if anybody does decide to start using this for app roles and administration, please leave issues and let us know how it's going. Let us know how you're using it. So yeah, see, I'm with Bolt. I'm really good at telling everybody why their UI or UX is wrong, just not being able to fix it.
I've been hearing a lot of good comments about Tailwind CSS, like much lighter and better than Bootstrap. So maybe that becomes a part of the project. I blame CSS. Yeah, I know. It's one of these things. Maybe we should do just a vanilla HTML CSS with minimal framework integration. You know what I mean? Like no React, no Vue, no Angular. Just make it super basic. No?
Maybe.
I mean, you don't need the whole framework for that. It's going to be a static page, right? I mean, how many screens do we need for this? Tailwind is sexy, says DFluxK. Haven't used it yet, but I've been hearing a lot of good comments.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, I don't know, I'd say there's probably about a dozen screens in here.
Oh, really? Dozen?
The screens themselves aren't terribly complex, but the searching they need to do and the rules that they need to enforce, that's where it is going to be somewhat complex.
So that's where you need JavaScript to do that, or can it be driven by an API in the backend?
Well, it's going to have to be driven by an API.
Okay.
Because it's B2C, when you sign in, you're not signing into the directory specifically, you're signing into B2C. So you're not using delegated permissions.
Yes.
So our backend thing here, I guess it's gone now. Our backend thing has to use app permissions to talk, which means our API has to be ultra locked down to know exactly what a user can and can't do.
Yep.
And obviously we can't really enforce anything in the front end, but making sure the right things are, say, visible in the front end and that it's intuitive, that's going to be most important. So
we need a role assignment for the ability to do role assignments in B2C. That's so meta.
yeah, you're going to have, so somebody is. So the initial user is going to have a role assignment. The initial role assignment is going to be called something like app administrator or something like that.
Yeah.
If you're an app administrator and you're a member of an organization, then you'll be able to see other users in your organization. But you can't see everybody in the directory because everybody in the directory isn't your business. You should also be able to create roles. So because if you're going to be able to create a role because you're an app administrator, you're going to create one for your role and then be able to put people into it. But the only people you can assign into it are people who are members of your organization. That's the big difference. So, I don't know. Maybe Tailwind is cool. I don't know. I mean, I've never used it. It'd be cool to try it. Be cool to learn it. I mean, this is a cool looking UI.
Yeah.
It's tiny. I like small. I like small.
Small frameworks. Apparently, it's
like
150 kilobytes for Bootstrap for CSS, and another 150 for the JS. You know, it's a lot of just for CSS and JavaScript to be available.
I think it looks nice.
Yeah,
it does look cool. So I don't know. Yeah, we can try it. So, oh look, you can use it in React, Vue, and Blade. Now I've never heard of Blade. What is Blade? It's like a PHP thing. Anyway, I don't know. Maybe we'll do it in React. Maybe we'll do it in Vue. We can use
Run says deflex key, yeah.
run away from what? From PHP. Oh yeah,
no, PHP.
Yeah, I don't have any interest in doing any PHP.
I know what you want, JP. I think you need Blazor.
I mean, we could do it in Blazor, I guess. I mean, Blazor would be easy in terms of like
hotness.
Well, is it though, or is it only the new hotness with .NET people?
No, it's the new hotness.
The people named Kevin or John, right? I don't know. I mean, I like Blazor, but I don't know. See, Robertable says only .NET people are into it. I think he's pretty correct there.
But hear me out. Is the the important thing here is to push it out of the door and get it tested. If we need to iterate over the UI, we can do it later. It will be a fairly short layer on top of the API that does most of the work. So why not? Why not do it with Blazor? And then if the feedback is this sucks or we want it a different way, do it a different way. What will get us out of the door faster? That's what I'm asking. I think Blazor will get us out of the door. And do people really care what it's running on, if it's running okay?
I don't know. I guess it depends on, browser support and all that sort of stuff.
So ClipTalk is the project that our friend Jeff Fritz is working on his channel, building it with Blazor and what have you. And
but where is it? Yeah, isn't there a site for it?
I don't think he's got a site up and running yet.
Awesome Blazor. I thought it was running. Oh no, cliptalk.com. Okay. He can get his SEO up because I couldn't find it. Okay. So is this Blazor? I assume it is, right?
Yes, it is Blazor.
All right. So is it Blazor client side or server side?
Client side, I think.
Okay.
From the little I know, but please correct me.
I mean, it's cool. It works, right? Suggested streamers. That's cool. You can see clips. I don't know why your favorite show isn't on here, but it's a Blazor with a whole bunch of Telerik. Oh, so it's like 89 megs then. How big was this? I mean, nothing against Telerik. I remember those control packages always added like
it's massive. Says Roberto
absolute Bulls. All right, well let's see what it is. I saw somebody do this. Did you know you can right click and do empty cache and hard refresh on a page? I've never seen that before.
Is that new? Must be new in the developer tools.
Must be.
Yeah.
All right, let's see how big it is.
Only dev modes.
Yeah. 67 requests, 2 megs transferred, 4.1 megs of resources, and finished in 6.5 seconds. It's not. Oh wait, I'm not on the main side. Let me go. Let me clear this again. Clear. I'm just gonna go to the main page, right?
So does it count the data that's coming in, or does it count the site resources?
Just 880K transferred, 4.0 megs in resources, finished in 4 seconds.
That's not massive.
So clear cache and hard refresh, 2.6 megs, 8 megs worth of resources, and appsettings.json and appsettingsproduction.json. Let's see what's in there. So there's a Twitch client ID and an Azure search key. And the search key looks like it's gone for production. So I don't know if that's supposed to be there or not. Sorry, Jeff. Sorry if we just showed your search key. We weren't supposed to. I don't know.
We just doxed Jeff.
It's bad enough to dox yourself. Now we're doxing somebody else. So what can be done? So we got a question. We got a question from.
Oh, on the other channel. Okay.
Oh, he said to log in. All right, let's log in quickly to appease. Let's log in to appease revertibles. Okay, so now I'm signed in, and
it doesn't use B2C. It uses straight in.
14 megs, 15 megs, 3.5 megs. Wow, that is quite a bit.
A lot. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't follow like a ton of people. I mean, we follow some people, but not a ton. So But I mean, that's cool. It's a beta. It's 0.15, right? No big deal.
Yeah.
But no, that is pretty big. Like if I was looking at that on my phone, I feel like that would be, that'd be fairly be a lot to download. So, so the other question. So we got a question. What can you do with Azure? Why is Microsoft putting so much effort into Azure? Or is it just a competition to Google Cloud or AWS? That's an interesting question. So Azure's been around for 10 or 11 years now.
Probably 12, right? No, wait. It's 2021. Started in 2008. Yeah. So we're 13 years in, man.
Well, but it wasn't available for humans to use until what? 2011? 2010?
No, I think you got your days mixed up.
I don't know. Let's go back and look.
2009, 2008. I remember using it.
So Bing is useless here. It was an initial release February 1st, 2010.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was announced at PDC, formally released in February 2010.
So it was 2008. Yeah, okay.
Well, it was 2008. It was announced at PDC. So yeah, I'm sure there were betas and stuff back then. But anyway,
10 years, at least 10 years of maturity there.
Yeah. So anyway, it's been around for quite a while. I have lots of opinions on differences between Azure and AWS and GCP, but we'll have to talk about those in a different forum. But no, Azure's a huge part of Microsoft. It's a huge part of what we do. It's a huge part of it's the whole thing. It's Office, it's Azure, it's Office for email and calendar and Teams and all that stuff. It's Azure for building apps and hosting apps and running VMs and getting out of your data center, and it's Dynamics for running your business. So I think no, I don't think it's just to compete with Google and AWS and Google Cloud. When did Google Cloud start? It's 2012, 2014. I don't remember exactly when.
I think between 2012 and 2014. It was fairly late in the game.
When did Google Cloud start? Let's see. They announced App Engine in 2018 and then became available in November 2011. So a year or so after.
Yep.
It says it was launched in 2008, but I remember App Engine. App Engine was pretty cool. But anyway, no, it's not I mean, obviously you compete, but it's not a... Microsoft's reason for Azure existing is not just to have something that can compete with AWS and Google. It's because it's a legitimate, proper cloud service that...
Well, we run our own infrastructure on Azure, so Microsoft is running on top of Azure. So first and foremost, we're the biggest customers of... We're a big customer of Azure itself because we need to use it for our resources. And there's a whole white paper on how we moved all our internal tools and services onto Azure to get the scalability that we needed. And then on top of that, we provide the same services to our customers if they want to build their infrastructure there and get away from owning infrastructure themselves.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, if you're a developer... I started with Azure because I started with AWS and I didn't really like it because I felt like it didn't really do a whole lot for me. Now, granted, this was 2010, right? I started this in October was when I started using cloud, October 2010. And is it bulletproof hosting or normal open internet? Well, it's far more than just hosting. There's so much more you can do besides host. There are services that run at all levels of the stack, all the way down to, I mean, you can get bare metal Azure now. You can go all the way up as high as serverless functions, whatever. And yeah, it lives on the internet, but it can also live on a VNet. It can be walled off from the internet and only accessed from like your, it can only be accessed from your on-prem networks and things like that. So, and then there are separate clouds too for places like China, Germany. U.S. government has their own cloud, that sort of thing. So there are all sorts of different places where all sorts of different levels of integration you can choose and how open or free you want it out on the internet versus how closed off or, limited to your network. Microsoft's like one of the top 10 network providers in the world in terms of fiber laid. So the majority of Azure runs on our own network. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, you use the internet to connect to it. But you could also lease a line. You can lease lines directly into Azure. So if you've got a big business or you've got a bunch of money and you want to buy a 10 gig or 20 gig line directly into an Azure data center, you can do that. And once you get connected, then you're connected to the rest of the Azure network around the world. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it's a huge thing, and there's something for everybody. Something for data people.
I can't remember the old days. Like I remember the old days, but I could never go back. It was such a horrendous experience. Like I like the fact that you go into the portal and you slide a slider somewhere, and your VM goes from 1 CPU and 2 gig of RAM to a beast of 2 teraflops with 64 cores, without you having to think about it. Back when I was working for a company in the UK, I was responsible for managing network and infrastructure, and we were renting VMs somewhere or servers somewhere. I'm not going to name the provider there, but I remember we're upgrading our SQL servers and we needed bigger machines. So we spent 6 months negotiating the price and the capacity of those servers, because we would say we need 64 gig of RAM, and they were like, why? Like, why do you care? And it was this back and forth that took literally 6 months for us to upgrade our SQL servers. Today, the fact that you don't have to think about that, or you don't have to speak to anyone other than getting approval from your IT team, is just insane. As a developer, you also get all this goodness of being able to try different things without having to wait for Dell to ship a server or some storage that you can start playing around with. Even backups. I remember I had to get our tape backups. We're using tapes for backups. Obviously, we had a tape machine, and I had to organize the tapes. Today, you don't even have to think about all these backups and how they take place. You can automate all these processes and get alerts and what have you. It's just a totally different mindset. And obviously, I was late to the game. Like, I know people that have been around for much longer than I am, and they can tell you some horrific stories from back in the day. So developers today have it so easy. Options are out there. You have multiple providers. You're not locked into hardware, software, anything. It's a whole new world.
I mean, I like to write code and go away. I don't like and that's when I first used AWS, which admittedly, it was 10 years ago. I was like, okay, so I have a bunch of VMs, and that was it. I didn't get any there was no state management between them. There was nothing. And back then, back 10 years ago, Azure was all platform service. So you didn't have like a VM. You had to write your software and you had to package it in a certain way. And you had config files and everything that went along with it. And then it ran on as many nodes as you asked for it to. Which honestly was really good for me, because it forced me to learn how to write software that could run like in a fully stateless manner, but then also how do we do like config, and how do we spin a bunch of stuff through how do we get a bunch of stuff going, and replicating configuration and state management across different nodes, and synchronizing memory caches across nodes and stuff. It was a lot of fun. I mean, it was hard, and there were certainly plenty of frustrating days, but it was a lot of fun. I don't regret any of it. And then, why work on VMs when you have Docker or Kubernetes? I agree. I say, why work on Docker or Kubernetes when you have things like serverless anyway, right? I mean,
why even work on serverless when you have logic apps? If you can solve your problems without code, what is better than that?
Let's not get too hasty now. When was the last time when did you last use a logic app, like a real logic app for a real purpose?
Well, I don't do customer work anymore, so I haven't used in a while. But when I was in the field, I would say last time was 2018. We were solving problems for customers. In fact, they had storage. They had to trigger something. We would use logic apps, and they would fan out to Azure Functions. So it's a legitimate solution, right? If you can solve a problem without writing code, then why? I remember my team in the UK, when they were hiring, they had this question about creating some elaborate solution about something, and who hired somebody that said, I would do it in Excel, because everybody was like, I would use storage account, and I would create a web app, and I would use queues or whatever. Somebody said, I'm just going to use Excel for it. Like, hired, right? If you can use something off the shelf that solves your problem without having to write it yourself or write code, it eliminates the risk of having to maintain that code and something going wrong. With Logic Apps, the onus falls on Microsoft to make it happen. As long as you have the right connectors there, everything should work out of the box. So
see, my only beef with Logic Apps is it's completely opaque how it executes, and there's virtually zero CI/CD. You got a giant JSON app, giant JSON file that you got to plop around everywhere.
Things have been improved quite a bit for Logic Apps. Now you can actually edit them inside Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code. And Bald is saying you can do CI/CD. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Then that's news to me. Well, that's cool. Anyway, and that's fine. Like, I'm certainly not saying you shouldn't use Logic Apps. Just, I'm just surprised that you immediately jumped to them. That's all. Anyway, but no, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't want to. Robertables has a good point.
What is that?
You're using a code editor for your no-code tool. He does have a point.
Oh, come on, Robertables.
Wait a minute, Ultramark. Wait a minute. Who's the marketing guy and who's the tech guy? I don't know if I want to know. I might get my feelings hurt. No, it's okay. Anyway, and then, yeah, let's see. Why work on VMs? Yeah, I mean, you don't have to work on VMs. It's just it's available. So many customers, enterprises, especially in big businesses, like, it's like moving. You got to steer a giant battleship, and it just takes a long time to start moving to these higher order things. It just takes a while, and because of that, it makes it really. If you don't have VMs, then nobody's going to come to your cloud.
There's a legit need for VMs. I had a customer that had a 2005 CRM running somewhere with some very obscure third-party tooling or add-ons. That company that built the tooling went out of business, and they were not able to upgrade to CRM Online or what have you. So they were forced in using Server 2005 with the old CRM. And for them, taking that and putting it into a VNet and being protected and just running that as an interim solution to buy them time, it was fantastic. They didn't have to write the whole thing from scratch, right? So there are always legitimate solutions for your platform. You just need to choose the one that makes more sense for you.
And then there's a question about what is a Logic app. Well, we'll go look at a Logic app because I think I have one.
Let's build one.
See if I got any.
Let's see if you want to do your B2C role assignment.
Oh no! I mean, I need this to actually work like consistently, quickly. It's know what? Think of Logic apps as like an IFTTT or a Flow or something like that, right? If you're familiar with IFTTT, you drag boxes onto a thing and you say, "Hey, do this," and "Hey, do this," and so when an HTTP request is received, list the files in a root folder and send them back in the response, right? So it's a workflow kind of designer thing, and then you can look at the code, which is a massive blob of JSON, and you can take this and this is and I don't know what CI/CD means in the context of what people are saying, but
no, you don't have to pay extra.
You can definitely take this.
Like the connectors are free. Right, you can as long as there's a connector there, you can use that out of the box. Obviously, if you have a service like, I don't know, Oracle server, you have to pay the Oracle licenses, but to connect to the Oracle server from Logic Apps, you don't have to pay for the connectors. I think you pay per execution. So that's something you need to the Logic Apps,
you do have to pay
if it works on my machine. That's right.
You do have to pay for premium connectors. Certain connectors are considered premium, right?
Yep.
Maybe they're not called premium anymore, the enterprise ones and custom ones. You can also run these, like, there are different ways that these run too, which is kind of cool. So like you can run these on what's called an integration runtime. Is that what they're called now? Which is essentially a node that lives in your Azure virtual network, which means it could also be connected on-prem, right? So it could connect to a database on-prem. And there's so many connectors for different things, like AS2s. Or I know there was at one point there was one for like connecting to AS400 and stuff. It's pretty cool. But those run on these in this extra isolated place. Yeah, I mean, you can send SMS.
And for people that ask about Power Apps is built on top of the same engine, but it's the consumer-facing service. Like if this then that.
I thought that was Flow.
They changed it to Power Automate. It has a new name now.
Power Automate. Okay.
Catch up with the times. Yeah, it was Flow. That's exactly what it was called before, and now they unified the Power Platform into one.
Let's
Power
go
Apps
see.
is different. Yes.
Yeah, Power Apps is something different. So let's see.
Flex case says it happened back in 1995.
What did? What happened in '95?
The renaming of the Flow to Power Automate.
95.
Yeah, I mean he's messing with us, but it's fine.
So here's
It means it's old news, but probably 2 years ago.
So here are the premium connectors. So I guess I've filtered this. Have I filtered this to premium? So yeah, like services, Adobe Creative Cloud and although App Service, I didn't realize that was a premium one. But there are different connectors, and you have to pay for the connector, or the connector itself has some other kind of cost associated with it.
Cosmos DB is included. So. Yeah, I don't think it's a premium one.
Let's go add. SQL was at one point, which is a real pain. Mm-hmm. So let's look. So it's all built around triggers and actions. So let's see if Cosmos is in here. I think change feed is a trigger.
They have conditional logic. They have loops as well. So if you receive, say, 10 records from somewhere, you can actually loop through them and find out the execution. You can also do conditional logics in there. If something is X, then go and do one action. Or else, go and do something else, which is brilliant.
Yeah, Cosmos is here. It doesn't look like there are any triggers, which I would have thought maybe like the change feed in Cosmos would have been an available one, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Are you looking at the right place?
I mean, I'm looking in Logic Apps. I just create a new one.
Yeah, you need to create a new one because you had actions and you were not looking at the triggers. I think once you create the top trigger, then I don't think you have another trigger there.
Well, I was looking at triggers and it said there were none available, so that's why I thought it was kind of odd. But
I would be.
Let's go look.
Super surprised. Oh, there's no triggers. Looks like for Cosmos DB. Huh.
Yeah, it's kind of lame.
That's no good.
There is a user voice for it, however. Maybe they'll add one. All right. They got some cool starter ones, like when a message is received in a service bus, but then there are also some other ones that are more kind of like human being facing, right? So you got different ones that you can start. Delete old blobs, that's a cool one. But then some of these are more like they're kind of like what BizTalk used to do, right? So X12 EDI for like all the like EDI messages that like financial systems and health systems and all those things use to talk back and forth. And a lot of these were sort of like what BizTalk used to do, where it would have lots of connectors for various protocols and would proxy them back and forth. Let's see if there's a Cosmos one in here. Oh Lord, they've got a blockchain one. Oh God, I don't even want to look at them. Enterprise integration. So these are all the things like service bus and whatever, AS2 stuff. Let's see. I was hoping to find a Cosmos one, like one that used Cosmos as a something. But let's see if we can do Cosmos. Yeah, no triggers. That's disappointing. But yeah, but there are all sorts of there are all sorts of different things you can do with them. I think they're cool, especially like for.
One thing I like to do with Logic Apps is if I don't have a connector for Azure Functions, let's say some obscure service, it's Adobe, and rather than me creating my own trigger for Azure Functions, you can use Logic Apps to be the trigger to your function and pass the data along. So it becomes a connector service to your Azure Functions. You can write custom code if you need to fall down that route. And it's something I've used with customers before. So lots of options there. And there are over 250 connectors for Logic Apps, and we build more. I think it's part of an open consortium as well. So it adds more and more services all the time.
I had no idea you were this excited about Logic Apps.
I just had some really exciting projects with Logic Apps.
I just had no idea.
There's no code. I mean, you go to a customer and say, I can solve your problems, writing zero code. See how excited the customers will be if you say that. Like, and when you find the solution and finally works, then they get excited, you get excited, and everybody's happy. We should do a session on logic apps and maybe see how you can build a solution that triggers, custom code or whatever. There's no code, looks at the tab code view. Yeah, there is a code view, but it's all JSON, right? So technically, you know what? It could be almost as the same as doing custom policies in B2C. That territory where you technically don't write any code, it's all XML. Here's just JSON doing stuff.
So what can you do in Logic Apps with VS Code? Automate tests and workflows with Visual Studio Code. Okay, so you can do so you do that, right? So you can just write the JSON. Is there a designer? So you can log in, that's cool. You can set up your integration accounts, that's cool. So, okay, log in, use device code, da-da-da-da-da. Okay, cool, my Logic app. Create, I'm on pins and needles waiting to see what I'm going to get. Is that just it?
I like how you scroll slowly to the bottom until you find that there's...
Oh, no. Okay. You can open your Logic app in a read-only design view. That's cool.
Yeah.
So you can't edit it, but you can at least see it. That's helpful.
Exactly. Yeah. Told you, it's evolved. And inside Visual Studio,
cool.
Inside Visual Studio, you can actually edit the whole flow using the designer. There's a caveat here, and that caveat is that we actually bring you a web view inside Visual Studio for that Logic app. So in effect, you are using a web view. You need to be connected to the internet for things to work. But then again, by definition, Logic apps only run.
Who has 1,000 points to spare? Wait, can I redeem my own channel points?
You can. Do not. Thank you.
Anyway,
Boy,
I'm just...
See, backfired. See, people are excited about Logic apps. That's the proof. Thank you, friends, for supporting my no-code solutions here. Next, we're transitioning to Power Apps. And from now on, we'll not be writing any code on the stream. It will just be Power Apps, Power Automate, Logic apps for the next 3 months.
I got it.
Play time for waiting. Like, dun, 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 dun. What are you doing? Are you opening? Logic apps for QR codes. Thank you. That's the solution that you're writing. Screw the B2C roles and the VS Code extension. We're doing QR codes with Logic apps.
Hey, I don't have anything against Logic apps. I had no idea you were such a champion of them. That's all. I was just surprised because you've never talk about them otherwise.
That's my secret side you never knew about. You're muted again. You're triggering people with Logic apps. That's it. That's what happens. Oh God. Well. There's a lot of blip happening behind the scenes right now, folks. They got me. They got me. They got me for.
They got you earlier.
Innovative ways of solving problems. See, I appreciate you, friends. Logic apps, Power apps, and QR codes from now on this stream.
Man, it's so funny.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. I mean, we talked to some different teams about coming on to talk about Power and stuff. I know we got some Teams folks that want to come on and chat. Also, we've got some other people in our team who are really keen to come on and go really deep dives on different parts of Azure AD. So I'm really excited about those. We're gonna we get a lot of people scheduled to come and hang out. So yeah,
the low code movement is real. Thank you. If Donna is watching the stream, just know I got your back.
Yep. Well, she could sit in my spot. So probably say, no, we don't want to come on and talk about it if that clown's going to be here.
The Christos and Donna show. How about that?
Yeah.
But it will never be the 45 show. So I will never replace you, JP. You complete me. Exactly.
All right, hang on. So I have a super cool Azure project currently working on. It is super complex and does some cool things. But some things I'd rather just go and do as quick as possible with the least amount of code and just get that bit done so I can focus on the goals of the app I'm building. No, for sure. Absolutely agree. It's like a place I used to work, 80% of our code was maintenance. And so many of those tools were tools that with Power Apps, Logic Apps, and like Flow, you could give like the people who needed those tools. It was a super important tool for 6 people in accounting, right? But they ran their whole day on it. But let the power users, like that's the thing, like let the power users make sure they got the APIs to get to the data they need to, and let the power users own and manage their tools, because then it cuts down your work and they're happier anyway because they get what they want and they can do what they want. Yeah. It frees you up to go do actual like big business moving work and keeping everybody happy. So no, I mean I totally agree with the thing. I'm genuinely surprised you're this excited about it. I just didn't know. Didn't know this side of you. That's all.
I was more excited about serverless. In fact, I was a serverless champion, so Azure Functions champion in Europe for about a year before I moved here, and I've done a ton of sessions and talks. I was shadow PMing for the Azure Functions team. So if there is something I'm passionate about, it's more serverless rather than Logic Apps. But Logic Apps do fall into that category. And true story, I was thinking the other day, the first company I worked as a software developer, we were processing a lot of data. We're processing about 1 trillion of lines of data per day. And our database was growing by half a gigabyte a day in terms of the import of data. All we did was importing data all day long. We had this tool called the Data Manager that was running on the server. It was a serverless app. It was a console. It would take a file. The file would be uploaded on FTP. Then we would run a trigger every so often on a timer. Sometimes these data managers we couldn't run concurrently because obviously you can't have the same file being processed twice, and it was a mess. And I remember most of our time was spent in writing this data manager. And at some point when I was working with functions, I thought the amount of effort that it took for us to write the data manager with hundreds of thousands of lines of code and concurrency things and what have you could have been solved with Azure Functions and maybe, I don't know, 150 lines of code. It was insane to think how the whole company's effort and the 12 developers that were working there, obviously we had front ends as well, but it was insane that the data manager process that we had could be solved with modern technology in as little as maybe 10, 15 days of creating functions and finding out that data import process and what have you. So, things are moving so fast, and knowing about these tools, like right now, Azure has more than 200 services out there. Do we know all of them? No. But at least hearing about them or knowing that they can be used for solving certain scenarios or certain problems, it's important. So Logic Apps will not be or shouldn't be the hammer that solves all the nails. Same for Azure Functions, although they used to be my favorite hammer.
Do you know what a hammer is?
See, I segued into that line.
Yep. Well, no, it's cool. I'm not ragging.
Sorry, I went on a rant.
It's okay. It's okay. That's why we're here. When is Build this year?
It's May, I think, 12th to the 17th. Let's find out. Can you?
It's in the spring, right? I searched for Build 2021 and it's showing me the first Windows 10 preview build for 20. Oh wait a minute, here it is. Sorry. So Ignite is the 2nd through the 4th.
Yeah.
.NET Conf is
March.
next week.
Yep.
Ignite is March 2nd through 4th. And Build recently concluded like months ago. Maybe it just hasn't been updated yet. So
recently, I don't think they have updated. But you're looking at
maybe
the
it hasn't
events,
updated,
right?
Yeah, I guess.
Well, I know that we're definitely speaking at Techorama this year, you and me, and
what is that?
We're doing a works. Techorama is the week after Build, and they're 17th and 19th. So my
no, but I just didn't know what is it.
When it's
I've never heard of it.
May 17th to 19th.
How do you spell it?
Techorama. Techorama. Like you hear it. Techorama, yeah.
A Rama Technical Institute?
Nope. Techorama.
Oh, Techorama NL.
Yep.
It's just Belgium.
There's
June
Belgium
2nd
and
through 4th?
Netherlands. Yes.
Okay. Okay, cool. Looks cool.
We will be there, friends.
May 17th through 19th?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Well, anyway, I guess we've managed to, we've made it all the way. We've made it all the way to the end of the day. I guess we got to go, but no, I haven't. I typed it in. I typed in Techorama. Yeah, right here. That's the one I just searched for. Bing Techorama.
Between Build, NDC, and Techorama, these are probably the biggest developer events out there for cloud, software development, databases, and security. Very dev oriented. I wouldn't say security is big on these, but Troy-Han has been a staple of these events.
Well, hey, look, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us. It's been a fun week this week. We had a blast yesterday and today. Come join us in Discord. The link's at the top of the screen. Send us your mail. Send us mail to, 45show@microsoft.com. Join the Discord. I know there were lots of questions we didn't get to, so DFluxK, if you'd like, send us an email. Just send me an email. We'll be happy to answer what we can.
45 After Dark is awesome. It is awesome. Maybe we should do more After Dark shows.
Who should we raid? Clarkio? Instafluff? Let's go to Instafluff. We haven't been there in a while.
Let's get to our friend Instafluff. Yeah, it's been a while.
He's so much fun. Let's go to Instafluff. So, hey everybody, have a great weekend. We're gonna raid Instafluff here in just a minute. Have a great weekend. Send us your notes. Let us help you, and we'll see you in a few days. See you on Tuesday. Bye.